Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, A.C. Staubel
and Isaac Hill.
Today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we are thrilled to have Alexis J. Cunningfolk on the show. Alexis is an author, an educator, an herbalist, and they own the Warts and Cunning Apothecary. And they've recently written a gorgeous book, The Apothecary of Belonging, Seasonal Rituals and Practical Herbalism. Hey, Alexis, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing great.
Excellent.
Yeah. Wintertime.
Wintertime.
Wonderland.
In various tones.
Exactly. Yeah. So we do have a traditional first question for the Plant Cunning Podcast, Alexis, and it's how did you come to the plant path?
Yeah. All right, here we go. I feel that this story sort of changes as I, look back on my life more and more. But I usually start by saying I met a koala at a very sketchy zoo when I was little. And I got to hold this koala. I don't, this is stuff I'm completely against nowadays, but I was like 5, maybe a little younger. And I held this koala and I had this moment of deep sense of kinship with this animal. I was like, I'm a koala and this is who I am. And from that point forward, because I knew that koalas only ate leaves, I proceeded to then go around very urban Tokyo, eating all the leaves I could find. And my parents realized that they couldn't stop me from eating the leaves, but they could start to teach me what leaves I shouldn't eat and what I should. And that became this really interesting part where I was like, I would like to know more about plants. And I like plants. And I like being up in trees more than I like being down with people. And so that curiosity and that love of being just like really engaged with plants, eating them as I'm biking around and climbing up trees. I was always up a tree. That's where the roots of my love of plants and being really in kinship with the plant world. If I was having a hard time, I was going to go talk to a tree, most likely before I was talking to a person, if a dog wasn't around, right?
Yeah.
And a few years passed, and a very astute aunt of mine who I wasn't in regular contact with, but for my 12th birthday, sent me a book on herbs and on tarot. And I had just at that point started to explore my own spiritual practice beyond what I'd been raised with, which was kind of a surprise to me because I was pretty comfortable in the little lovely church community I had been raised in. But I had this calling happening, and so I got this book on tarot and on herbs, and I was learning more about more of the folkloric and the magical practices of herbalism at that point. But it just opened up this world of being able suddenly to have this whole world of words and language and stories to help me understand what was going on inside me, to help me understand what was going on around me, and to find some words to be able to communicate that a little bit better. Tarot is a storytelling tool, and herbalism incorporates storytelling within its practice, at least the way that I practice herbalism. Lots of herbalists do, but there's this inherent storytelling that happens with these modalities. And so it just kept going from there. It wasn't until I was in college, though, that because at 12, I was like, great, I'm going to start an herbal business. And so I made MS Paint. I made some labels and made all these little concoctions. It was mostly topical stuff, and just loved the whole process of working with plants and finding it felt really, especially at that age, it felt so empowering to go, I can make choices about what I do with my body to make me feel better and feel connected to the world around me, instead of I had a number of negative doctor experiences at that point, right? And so I think plants really helped go, actually, healing can be a kind experience, the loving experience. And so then fast forward a few years later, I'm in college. I'm in Massachusetts, and a friend of mine handed me a pink rose scented catalog. It's kind of like a robust zine.
Ooh.
And it was Deb Soul's
Oh,
catalog for Avena Botanicals.
cool.
And you should go to her website and you should
I
download
love
it and
pink.
enjoy it. And because it was sort of half a catalog of her remedies and half of how to use herbs in a really basic way. And I was like, what? You can be an herbalist for a living? What is this? And alongside that catalog, I was handed a bottle of rose glycerite that Deb makes.
Oh,
That's this
heavenly.
like pink, beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And so I took a drop of it and I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to be an herbalist. I'd known that plants were going to be involved in my life. I just didn't know
Yeah.
that you could do this. And so, yeah. And so it just kind of continued from there. I found Deb's book and found other books and started lovingly experimenting on my friends more. And yeah, so that's kind of before I keep going on and on, but that's the origin story.
Yeah, I think that's the first koala plant person origin story that we have heard here
Yeah.
on the podcast.
Yeah, I have to honor that koala. I hope I have.
Yes.
I look back and I feel so bad about that poor thing, but yeah, I try to honor them through the storytelling and hope that they are resting peacefully in a
Yes.
eucalyptus tree in the Summerlands. So,
Totally.
yeah.
So your parents also directing you to the plants that were edible and not edible, did they know some of these things about herbal medicine or did they have to like learn on their feet?
They didn't know anything. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, beyond sort of your basics like chamomile tea is good for, which I'm
Hmm.
grateful that chamomile has just been like this robust little plant that has
Yeah.
made sure that we have continued with our herbal traditions through the
True.
years, right? Chamomile's like, I will show up in the grocery stores. We are going to be here on every corner. You can find me in the bodegas.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I
Goodness.
think they're like, don't eat the red berries, please.
Right.
We're not sure about that. Um, and they would encourage me too, as they saw that like I was really, I was going to continue to collect plant materials and I was either going to eat them and they gave me some buckets from McDonald's when McDonald's still did buckets for their Happy Meal. And they
Mhm.
said, why don't you make potions? I was like, great. So,
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
so that's what I started to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also love that you found Deb Soul's work through her little zine or pamphlet. And it makes me think about just how sometimes you don't know what effect you're going to have. Like Deb Soul didn't know by making that pamphlet that she was going to
Yeah.
set up some other baby herbalist on their path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it reminds me of something you wrote in your book on the Apothecary of Belonging towards the end when you were thinking about writing the book, sitting under an oak tree, and you're, thinking, it was kind of like an am I good enough or, is this book going to help people? And then you watch these little scrub jays in the oak tree and you were watching them plant basically new oak trees by pushing the acorns into the soil and they'll go back for them in winter or they won't and then it'll become a new oak tree and you realize that you're planting your own seed by writing these stories down and by sharing this wisdom with others and you're never really sure what's going to take fruit but I'm very glad that you decided to go forward and write this book.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, yeah, there's a bit of uh once you make a thing, you put it out there, it's no longer yours.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we can argue about sort of copyright and all that kind of stuff. There, of course, there's a level of respect I hope we're all having for one another, but I can tell a story and have it be one thing, a really, certain stories you have relationship with, they're living beings.
Mm.
And I can tell this story because I have this relationship with this story and it has meant these things and I've grown in this way with this story. When I offer it to somebody else, I no longer have control of that relationship, nor should I, right? And there needs to be the process of writing this book was kind of reflecting on, I'm a library kid that was saved by books, by pamphlets, right? By
Hmm.
all these stories that were offered freely. And watching these scrub jays, I have all these little oak
Hmm.
seedlings in my yard, and scrub jays plant forests every year. They're
Yeah.
incredible. And it really helped me to settle into this place of I'm just planting seeds. Some of
Right.
them are going to grow, some of them aren't. Some of them are going to, rot and become
Hmm.
decay for the forest floor, and that's important too.
Mm.
But the more I try to hold on to grip a seed in my fist, it's not going to do anything. And it's just going to, I'm going to be left with a lot of tension and angst,
Mm.
right? And so
Yeah.
I try in my more, expensive moments, I can really hold on to that. But it comes from a place because this is all, I think we're living in this really interesting time of so much is being said, um, and not a lot is being heard.
Mm.
Hmm. Right.
The and the areas where really telling stories of substance are both like shrinking and expanding in wild ways, right? So
Yeah.
I think,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that beautifully. And I love you making the connection of storytelling and herbalism too is something that is so obvious when you say it, but I've never really thought about it in that way of how intertwined storytelling is with the practice of herbalism and passing on plant wisdom and knowledge. But I think about it with all my herb teachers, they often would tell a story to describe the action of an herb,
Yeah.
and it really is intertwined.
Yeah. And I think I know that this comes from my background in sort of starting with magical herbalism, which relies on myths and folklore to
Mhm.
help us understand why we would want to work with a particular plant. So I came to then studying medical herbalism with this idea of, oh, we're going to tell a lot of stories. It was interesting when I'd be like, oh, shall we talk about how if we have to be careful about smelling basil because it could put scorpions in our brain. Isn't that interesting? And some of my herb teachers thought that was delightful, and some were like, what are you talking about? Please, we are trying to be somewhat respectable.
Yeah.
And
It's the bane of clinical herbalism.
yeah, and I think now we've come much further in our understanding of how much story is important in all aspects, in
Hmm.
all areas of healing work. Story is important in hospitals. Stories are important in mental health work, right? Stories are important on the street. Stories are important everywhere. All my herbal teachers told stories, and those anecdotes, those stories are our case studies because we are such a, of course, we have a vast library of written works, but we are still predominantly an oral tradition,
Right.
Mm.
which I think is really important.
Yeah.
And I just like to point out obvious things. I don't think it's real. And yeah, I think we should really celebrate the way that we're telling these stories. Alongside, it doesn't mean we give up on sort of more medicalized ways of talking about plants. It's just it's such a wonderful way to talk about. I can talk about anti-inflammatories in a couple of different ways so that students start to feel it in their bones,
Right.
Yeah. And
instead of
case studies are stories,
Yeah.
you know?
they are stories, right? It's
That,
just, oh yeah, please go on.
well, that's how we learn, you know, we learn from the case studies a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we should just continue to celebrate our case stories. I love it when I didn't do it in this book quite because there really it wasn't the book for it, but I love herbal books that have a lot of case studies in them. I love that. I love hearing the ways that it's such a gift to hear the ways that an herbalist has worked with a plant and the stories they have to tell about this plant or the stories they've carried from their ancestors, right?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's also for memory and for learning, it's like a peg to hang your hat on in a way.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
story sticks with me more than the list of herbal actions, you know?
Yeah, these mnemonic devices, right? These ways that we help remember things. Our herbal our cultural herbal ancestors, especially in traditional Western herbalism, which is my background, were using things like memory palaces and all these sort of mnemonic devices
Yeah.
because you couldn't rely on having something written down or have access to those written documents, even if they were. That memory was a key part of this practice.
Hmm.
And we are creatures who are built for stories. We remember things through stories really well. So, yeah.
So when you started studying traditional Western herbalism, who were your main teachers? What path did you go down in that journey?
Yeah, so Julie James
Hmm.
of Green Spirit, her school is Green Spirit Herbal Studies. She's in Long Beach. Incredible. Go,
Mhm.
run, run to Long
Okay.
Beach. She's just this,
Take a while
um,
to get there.
yeah, she is an incredible teacher. She's one of those, she's so smart and she understands, she really gave me a firm foundation, appreciating both the scientific kind of lab science approach to herbalism and understanding when lab science got it wrong and when they got it right. And she was the first teacher to also say, "Hey, can you tell me about the myth of this plant? Because I don't know about it." Now she's really she expanded her knowledge even further into folkloric stuff. But she's a great, great teacher and she's an incredible community builder. You can check her out on Instagram, and the ways that she builds community. It's pretty incredible, very inspiring.
Mm.
And what's funny is I met her as a child, but I didn't know who she was. So when
Oh,
I moved
wow.
back to the States, she was running, there was a little strip mall and it had a comic book store and it had an auto shop and it had a health food store run by this rather terrifying woman with long red hair. So I'd been in Japan for the first 5 years of my life. And so redheads were sort of, I didn't quite know what to do with a redhead.
Yeah.
A little dangerous.
Yeah, and she had this real stern energy.
Uh-huh.
And I would go in there because in the very far back, she had push pops that I wanted. And so I would brave going in there to get my push pop and then go to the
Uh-huh.
comic book store really quickly. And that was Julie. It was, we figured that out years later.
Wild.
Yeah, and so she was there from the very beginning. Yeah, so Julie, Demetra Clark, who is Vermont,
Mm.
I did, and then I did get to meet Deb. I ended up that I was classmates with a kid that grew up with her, so I did get to meet her. I never sort of formally studied with her, but I did get to go to Avena Botanicals
Nice.
and watch the way that she worked with the land, and that was incredible. Yeah, Julie was my main teacher for a really long time. Uh, Margie Flint
Oh, cool. Yeah.
did a clinic, a rotation with her. Yeah.
So did you end up using some of those skills from Margie and Julie in like a clinical practice?
So I've had for a little while kind of, I would show up as an herbalist at events, especially in Long Beach,
Hmm.
and ran kind of very low-key private practice with friends and friends of friends.
Hmm.
And so did use some of that. In my early, I use more of that now. Um, and then, but in my early days, I was doing a lot of remedy making and
Nice.
selling at marketplaces. That was because my partner was in midwifery school at that point, and so I was the breadwinner. So I had all sorts of little jobs. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but yeah, and so listening to the body and learning to appreciate the fact that herbalism has been built on thousands of years of observational skills
Hmm. Yeah.
and
Totally.
how important it is to preserve that. I wish that it let me pause for a second. Herbalism does a really good job, I think, when there's a focus on observing the body of creating a really great bedside manner between the practitioner and client, which I would love to see more in our kind of more standard medical systems.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was so healing for me personally that uh, that's why I was like, okay, I want to make sure because um, when I was in my student days, things like taking pulses or looking at what the face is doing, or even just listening for body-based language of how somebody was talking about themselves
Yeah.
wasn't as prevalent as it is these days because
Mhm.
we've had so many more folks talking about, hey, we have these incredible roots, like the six tissue states, right? Which are
Yeah.
Yeah.
very body-based. Because I think we were, when I was coming up with herbalism, we were still grappling with like worrying that people were going to find out that at one point we talked about humors, right? You know? And now, and now there's this understanding of, oh no, this is just, proto-medical language. It's not some like it, yes, of course, there are people talking about it in fantastic ways, but there's people who are always going to talk about things in fantastic ways when it comes to healing work, for
Mhm.
better or for worse. Um, and that it's really just early medical language. It's really just trying to describe something that's anti-inflammatory, right?
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
trying to describe um, processes, when a diuretic is needed, if there's swelling in the body. And they just use language that sounds old to our ears now, but laid the foundation for modern medicine. And I think that I'm really excited to see how herbalism is stop uh, tr Western herbalism is not hiding from that as much and kind of going, oh, this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially, I think there's been an embrace again within more standard medical systems of, oh, paying attention to the way somebody's talking about their internal experience really matters.
Yeah.
Right.
Having good bedside manners really matter.
Yeah, I wish that was
Actually, yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
more widely accepted or more common sense
Yeah.
in the Western medical world. Yeah.
Or getting there,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah. They could
There's some
learn
really
a,
cool things out there.
they
And
could learn a
also,
thing from us herbalists, huh? Those doctors.
yeah, well, and also the US is different than there's a lot of countries in Europe in which you're going to get tea recommended to you alongside everything else, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyways, the that's a
Yeah.
whole other thing, the history of herbalism in
Right.
the
Yeah.
United States.
And people getting thrown in
Um,
jail and
yeah,
such things.
Yeah.
wild and wacky.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Hmm.
So Alexis, tell us
Yes.
about the book, The
I should
Apothecary
do
of
that
Belonging.
probably,
Tell
Yeah,
us
yes.
all
we should get
about it.
we get
Yeah.
to yeah.
We should probably do that.
Why this book?
Why this book? Yeah. So I was approached by Wiser to write this book.
Oh.
So I actually had no idea what I wanted to write about when they came to me. And what's nice about Wiser is they had some ideas. They thought that maybe I could turn some of my courses into a book. And I said, no,
Hmm.
I don't want to do that.
Uh-huh.
Um, but they basically said, great, you tell us what you want to write and you write it, which is pretty amazing for a first time author,
Yeah.
which is great. So I then immediately forgot how to write anything or come up with any ideas.
As one does.
It was just immediate and profound. And so I have been writing on the internet for a very long time,
Yeah.
but in my official public blog, goes back into ye olden days of 2010. So
Hmm.
I'm like scrolling through my archives going, come on, there's got to be something here that I would want to spend all this time writing a book. Because writing a book is not it, especially these days. Wow, you have to like write it in 6 to 8 months, which is a short timeline for a book.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm like scrolling through, I'm finding nothing. I'm going, well, maybe I can convince them just let me publish essays that I've already written before. I don't know. So,
Mhm.
and I got all the way down to the bottom of the page, and I'm at my disclaimer, copyright, and I see, oh, my land acknowledgement. So I click on that,
Mhm.
and and one of the lines I have in there is, all is land, there is no other. I go, okay, that's my book.
Mm.
That's my book.
Yeah.
Because that's been my work.
Right.
Because of I work, well, okay, I'll explain more in my book and then I'll talk about who I work with. All right. So I wanted to write a book that felt very practical, one that I would want to pull off my shelf when I can't remember what herb do I use for a damp cough
Hmm.
versus a dry cough? Is it elecampane or mullein, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so I wanted that practical indications-based guide in there. But I really wanted the book to act like a love letter to
Mm.
folks to say, because all of us are land, because there is no other, your belonging is inherent. It doesn't have to be earned. You don't have to prove your worth to belong. You don't have to explain why you have a right to exist or belong. Your belonging is inherent. And so, if we work from a place in which your belonging is inherent, what does that look like? How do we then use the practice of kinship, kinship with the land around us, kinship with the land of our bodies, and kinship with the land between all of us to develop and strengthen that sense of belonging? And for me, as an herbalist who practices from an earth centered perspective, it meant walking through the seasons together. And so the book is there's four main sections which are by seasons, and we talk about and explore the ways that the land is changing around us and how that might be reflecting within us, and how those the changes in the land are happening in our communities as well. Because I believe that healing is a community practice, whether we feel alone in any moment, but it is always meant to bring us through back to our beloved community. And I mean community in the sense of our human kin, animal, and beyond human kin, our plant, stone, water. And so the book is this just, we explore, we talk about the energetics of traditional Western herbalism, which are so great at helping us be earth centered. They are earthy terms.
Mm.
Hmm.
And then we flow through each season. And in each season, we also then have a little apothecary section. So we're going to talk about, hey, I want folks to feel like their herbal practice is moving with the season as opposed to I have a cough, so I'm going to get this herb now, which I want you to be alleviated from the suffering of that cough, but also to go, oh, I know that come autumn with the increase in the damp and the mold and the rain, that I'm prone to coughs in my body. That's
Mm.
how my body interacts with that. And
Yeah.
so I know to prepare these certain sort of herbs ahead of time and for there to be a rhythm to practice because we are all tired. We are all too busy because of the systems that have been set up around us
Mhm.
that we don't have a choice really to get out of right now.
Yeah.
And so to center your herbal practice with the rhythms of the land within, around, and between all of us, I think, and from this place of I already belong, I don't have to earn it.
I
I'm
love
already
that so much.
here,
Yeah.
right? That
Mm.
I think that already begins to transform then the way that we interact with plants, as opposed to like I'm doing air quotes here, natural things in bottles that we can buy off shelves. I'm grateful that we can buy those things off shelves, but I want to doing instead of encouraging the commodification of herbalism, I want to encourage a relationship with all of us, right?
Yeah.
We are going to heal together. We belong to each other. So, what are we going to do with that knowledge?
Mm. Yes. I love that. And I love how you've set up the book to have that structure of the seasonal approach to be able to discuss the various plant medicines and magical practices and relevant recommendations from that animistic and like sort of spiritual magical approach of connection and belonging.
Yeah.
So I think you really nailed it. And I was
Thanks.
wondering, well done.
Phew. Okay.
No, you did great. And I like the herb choices too, because I also am trained in the Western herbal tradition, and so they're familiar friends to me.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just I think you've already spoke a little bit about this just now, but the sense of belonging, this human need for belonging and connection. I mean, we walk into a room and we ask like, do I belong here? It's just like the
Mhm.
first thing that comes to mind. It's part of being human. And I'm just wondering like, yeah, what is that sense or what does belonging look
Yeah.
like?
So, I both my experience, my personal experiences, and then the sort of the community that I've ended up working with as an herbalist,
Mm,
belonging has been in the center
mm,
because so I grew up, third culture kid. I'm
mm,
mixed. I'm queer.
mhm,
I've experienced a number of different class levels, which has
mm.
really shaped my understanding of the world. Um, and in all those experiences, there's I have been seeking out like where do I belong? I thought that, I came back from Japan thinking I was Japanese. I didn't have a complex understanding of living in a place versus being of a place, right? And so I had to it was pretty early on grappling with what it means to belong to a people and a place and why some people are so interested in making you feel like you don't belong and why they feel
Ugh.
threatened by your belonging, that you belong to each other.
Mm,
Because it is also, right? We can even expand it out broader. Women walking into spaces where men think that they're the only ones who belong there, right?
yeah.
That not only creates that emotional tension, but there's a dangerous element to it. And I think that, you know, um, by focusing my work and our work on, we're going to work from belonging first, that we're not going to seek it out. It's already here in the room with us.
Yeah.
Begins to shift what do I need to do to belong here? We can make choices if we want to be in this room, but we don't have to make choices about whether or not we are deserving of our existence. And so
Right.
I also I work with my community. So I work with a lot of mixed folks. I work with a lot of queers. I work with a lot of working class folks too. And just folks who have been marginalized both systemically and kind of in personal relationships as well. Um, and it can't not be part of the work addressing this feeling of disconnect and dissonance that can arise when you're told over and over and over again that I'm sorry you don't measure up
Hmm.
to what we think is deserving of belonging. Um, and when you start to, and this is from my background too, and activism and organizing and all that kind of stuff, that I was seeing so much burnout in my community
Mm,
because there was this idea, there was a real, I need to push myself to my absolute limits because there's so much suffering. If I don't do that, I'm not going to prove myself as a good activist, right? And when you come back to actually, we're not doing the work of proving ourselves. We're doing the work of being in community with one another. We're doing the work of honoring that the people you're agitating and for to have more rights and more access to whatever, right? Housing, food, etc. That you are trying to create the space for them to belong. And so we need to you have to be offering that to yourselves at the same time, right? And
mm,
so learning, it took me a while to kind of figure out that that was the wall that I kept coming up against with folks
yeah.
who were, yes, they wanted to be alleviated from, whatever chronic condition or acute condition that they had come to me with or shown up in my classrooms with.
Hmm.
But it's really hard to feel stable in yourself and that you're even deserving of feeling better if you don't feel like you even have a right to be in the room,
Yeah.
where that's to the room of your body, the land of your body, or elsewhere. And so when you just kind of, it's a way of saying, yes, we have all of these identities and intersections of experience, and we are land, and that's what we're working from. And we can come back to
Hmm.
that, and then we can go out again, and we can come back to that, right? I hope that explains something.
That does it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes me really emotional too, actually, just,
Yeah.
thinking about like the feeling of not belonging or the feeling of others not belonging in that way in your own body.
Yeah.
But yeah, connecting with the land and the plant offers us this rootedness, this love, this sense of connection and belonging that we often don't get in society. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so let's talk about some of the plants that
Yeah.
we connect with. We're going into the winter season now, and it's a season of rest and rejuvenation, resilience. Are there any herbs in the winter that come to mind as a beloved plant ally of yours that you're gonna start holding close here in the winter?
Yeah. So I come end of summer. We're still deep in our autumn right now, but so end of summer into autumn, I start pulling rose into my practice more and more.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and what I love about rose at this time of year is that it helps the summer body to transition into more the season of rest. We're moving from the light half to the dark half of the year. And rose is gently cooling. It's not super cooling, it can be gently cooling, but it really works with the sort of the waters of our body in an interesting way, both the emotional and sort of the physical waters of our body, helping us to settle a bit. I see summer as kind of this, we have this, you're at the beach and it's waves and excitement and there's foam and riptides and all, like there's a lot of energy, and sort of autumn pulls us into the rivers and
Mm.
estuaries. And I think
Hmm.
rose is that river and estuary sort of herb for me. That's how it makes me feel in my body. I like it too because, we're slowing down. We're eating richer foods often.
Hmm.
Yay. And it has that great, rose is really good before meal times. It has that great prebiotic quality, right? It's helping the garden of our gut grow, all those healthy gut flora. And so I like rose for that. I like rose helping with how our the transition of our skin from summer into the drier winter. So
Totally.
autumn is more damp for us here. And so I like that astringent quality of roses helping. But then when we're hitting with more of the dryness that comes with winter, rose has that softening quality. I love using it topically and internally as well. It's one of my favorite topical herbs. Yeah, and it just helps too, I think, on that with the emotional body and sort of the stories that I've been met with Rose is the way that it we are able to soften and open up with Rose because of its thorny qualities. That there's a level, we need to feel a level of security in order to experience that vulnerability, and that Rose is a great teacher and ally for that work for folks who are even the thought of slowing down and softening stresses you out. You might want to
Mm.
work with that sort of those thorn medicines. So that's rose, hawthorn, especially if heart palpitations are present. Rose, hawthorn being the, I think it was, oh gosh, I'm forgetting her name, but she wrote a book, Herbal Rituals. She called hawthorn an herb of the hinge. And so that whether it's the hinge of like thresholds and transitions, or the as a cardiotonic, and the
Mm.
hinge for the chamber of the heart because it regulates our heart so well. It's a pretty incredible cardiotonic. So yeah, so I'm like bringing in now that thorn medicine, and hawthorn's another great plant for this time of year, especially I like the berries at this time of year for just gentle preventative medicine for cold and flu season. But that heaviness that can kind of settle with the season, if anybody, experiencing a bit of seasonal blues.
Hmm.
Hawthorn is really lovely for that. And it's another great digestive tonic. So I tend to start, autumn and winter, my really the digestive tonic season for me. Seasons.
Hmm. Getting ready to digest all those
Digest, process the
experiences.
year.
Yeah, process
Yeah.
the year.
We're
All the rich
processing the
foods.
year.
Mm.
Yeah, and those are really kind of, and so it's that processing the earth. These are grounding herbs. They kind of work with the, lower bits of our body, as opposed to I might be working with herbs that the energy kind of goes up. Like I like lavender as a digestive herb, but that's more of a spring, summer herb, right?
Mm.
It's a brightening, pulls us up. Um, but yeah, so rose. I make sure to have my cold and flu shelf prepared. I during the pandemic, I started to read about the ways that herbalists worked through the flu in 1918.
Hmm.
I was really curious about that. I loved there was such a because we at that point there was still a rather robust kind of newsletter amongst herbalists, and so they're constantly sharing information. And there's a bit of like herbalists and homeopaths, so sometimes they were butting heads, but everybody was trying to really share information as fast as they could to help as many folks, and it was really inspiring to see.
Yeah.
But I was introduced to Boneset, uh,
Sunset?
uh, Eupatorium.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Eupatorium perforatum.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got that's one of them.
Boneset
Bone
is what
set.
yeah, Boneset.
Yeah.
Yeah, that grows out
Um,
here. We've got it all over the
Yeah, and so I
place.
don't have that as much as those, done much of my education on the West Coast. And so, anyways, it's one of those like really region, it feels like a regional herb, but was
Definitely.
introduced to that and have started incorporating
Yeah.
Boneset into those bone break fevers, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Lovely, lovely herb. And I love the way that it plays really well with other herbs too. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I've got all my, I want to make sure I've got my mullein for Bascom thapsus.
Right,
I've
right.
got for mullein moistens, so that's for the dry coughs. Elecampane, Inula, Helenium.
Mm.
Elecampane expels, so for those catarrh, the mucusy, damp coughs. Always have those on hand.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good blend right there. Bone set, Mullinella
yeah,
campaign.
yeah, yeah.
Because the bone set's
So,
more cooling and Ellie campaign's a little more warming, and then the Mullen is a nice, tonic for the lungs and expectorant and
yeah,
helps with a hack. So love that.
yeah, yeah. So, and then I'm always, I have my, uh, I feel like your when in doubt herbs.
Uh-huh.
And that is, I'm taking from, and I can't remember which David it is, if it's David Winston or David Hoffman, but when in doubt,
Uh-huh.
nettles
Right.
is his quote.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so I feel like herbalists, after a while, you have your when in doubt herbs.
Yeah.
Rose is one of my when in doubt herbs.
Hmm.
Lemon balm is one of my when in doubt
Oh
herbs.
yeah,
I love lemon balm.
definitely. Oh.
I call it I describe it as an herb for overexertion. And
Mm.
so it can be that social overexertion, physical overexertion. Your immune system feels overexert. You just feel depleted, but it helps with connecting you back into the hum of community without losing track of your own tone. And it's just one of those great, I like herbs that you can take over an extended period that
Hmm.
aren't going to be doing dramatic things, but really encourage you to do that slow shift of healing your body. And so for me with lemon balm, I love it for folks who have been getting sick and sick and sick on a regular basis. And so they feel like their immune system is gone. And instead of just we'll sort of start with some more um, uh, intense immunostimulating herbs, but lemon balm is going to be that long-term herb to help rebuild not just the immune system, but sort of the sense of self when you feel well, because we can forget what it feels like to feel good. And I think
Mm,
Yeah.
lemon balm, because you can take it over such an extensive time and it has a nice immunomodulating, it's going to
yeah.
help with protecting against bacteria and viruses along the way. But it does help us get back to that sense of, oh, this is what it feels like to feel well. And then milky oat, and that I've got
Um,
from Avena, uh, from
Depsol.
Debsol,
Yeah.
yeah, Avena Botanicals. So,
Yes.
um, yeah, and so that's my other when in doubt herb for a lot of things. That's the
Yeah.
your nervous system tonic supreme,
Mm.
especially in Western herbalism.
Yeah.
Such a gorgeous, gorgeous plant to work with, especially over an extended period. Yeah,
Can't get enough Milky Oats. Yeah, I
no.
just love it.
Have milk out in my tea this morning. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful to hear some of these plant allies. So I guess speaking of plant allies, if folks are new to that idea of
Yeah.
having a plant ally, what is that? And how can you know, find
Yeah, I
your
should
own?
pull up I actually spent some time trying to write an official definition for me, and it's in the book,
Mhm.
but here we're going to go. So a plant ally. Plant ally is a plant, fungi, a tree, an herb, right? That you have some sort of relationship with. And for me, a plant ally speaks to a deeper relationship than just drinking tea with some herbs in it, which is lovely and wonderful. And you're having a relationship with plants there, but that there has something has changed within you in your relationship with this plant. And so that can be like when I had that first drop of rose glycerite. I didn't go on to then work with rose extensively from that point forward, but I had in that moment, rose became a plant ally for me because it opened up this world that I didn't know existed. And later on, I've worked with that plant to really have a lot of stories with them. But for me, a plant ally is it's all about relationship. And it's this beautiful, beautiful way of practicing kinship in a pretty low stakes environment because plants are very generous and they're not humans. And I think sometimes it can be hard to practice kinship with people when it feels very complicated. And sometimes we have to learn how to practice kinship with our beyond human kin to help us move back into healthy relationships with our human kin, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for folks who are they're like, well, I want a plant ally. Yes, I would encourage there's a couple of approaches. First of all, I think that half of us work with plant allies and then we realize that we're working with a plant ally. And that even happens to us old moss-covered herbalists who think that we are so aware all the time. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this plant has been really working with me. And now I'm going to open up and work with them in turn, right?
Totally.
Yeah. I always encourage folks, think about the kitchens you grew up in
Mm,
Mm.
and what herbs were present there and the cultural herbs
mm.
that were present. Or maybe you didn't have a really functional family kitchen life, but maybe you had a beautiful oak tree in your local park or something. Those plants that you connected with as a child
That's a
can
good
often,
idea. Good
yeah,
starting place.
really good starting place. And then for folks who are like, I don't have that, you can also look up through your sort of cultural and ancestral lines for plants that stick out,
Yeah.
you know. And also, I love if you had a favorite childhood book that had any sort of plants or tree in them, work with that. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
there's a sense of play, I think, is really important with this work, and not
Mm,
to get to like, I need to do this right. We're playing. Playing is our earliest form of practicing kinship. And so, like, just go right back into
mm.
that. right?
Yeah,
Just play with
totally.
it, you know?
Love that. And
Yeah.
one thing that your book inspired me to play with is this idea of creating our own oracle maps, our own maps of belonging, and
Yeah.
to map our inner landscape. And it's something that I've done for a long time anyways, create mind maps where I do
Mm,
little
yeah.
bubbles and then connect them because I find that much easier. It's like the way my brain thinks rather than
Right.
trying to just write in a linear list down a page. If I like forget a thought and have to write in the margins, it like drives me nuts. But if I make a little bubble and then a new line off that thought, it's feeling very orderly. But I love this idea of making our own oracle map of belonging. So do you want to explain a little bit about
Yeah.
this in the book?
So this was something that I snuck in um to I told my editor, I go, I'm gonna put this in. I know it might not feel completely congruent, but it'll make sense in the long run. Um, because as I was thinking, I really wanted to have multiple approaches for folks to begin to explore their own sense of belonging in this world. And so I have our seasonal guides, I have small, simple rituals, we have some herbal teas. But this idea, similar to you, I my inner world is not made up of lines on a page,
Mhm.
even though I enjoy writing lines on a page, but it's made up of, these complex webs of information interacting with one another. And as I was trying to pull on the ways that I've taught over the years and this idea of if we're all land, what is that? How do you explain that to somebody? And that one way to do that is to say, okay, let's start to tell the story of the land of your body, right? Where does summer live within you?
Ooh, yeah.
Right? And where, when you are living through summer around you, what is happening inside of you? And so we go from this place and we're starting to, it is a bit of a remedy to the way that we've been talked to about our bodies. Well, your body is sick.
Mm.
It shouldn't be doing that. I wish your body was more still, more quiet. Why is it so sensitive?
Oh, yeah.
Right? All these things we've been told about our bodies. Well, your body doesn't belong here in this
Mm.
place.
Ugh.
You're not enough of this to
Yeah.
be part of what we're doing over here, right? Because those stories are going to come up if we're trying to embrace our belonging. They should come up, right? Because one of the ways that we understand our belonging is to explore the ways we have been told deeply and repeatedly that we don't belong. And so
Mhm.
we come back to this idea of an oracle of belonging where we are exploring our inner landscape and we're mapping it out. And we're removing, when we feel like we want to, the borderlands we've told that must exist, the divisions we had to put up to survive, and exploring what our inner landscape looks like at this time. And throughout the book, I kind of suggest these simple ways of divining is not quite the right word. It's sort of meditating with, exploring with plant allies and your inner landscape, ways of understanding what is going on, exploring patterns that are coming up, exploring these old stories that might no longer serve you, but in a way that feels a little bit more playful and that you have some more control in because you can draw lines and you can erase them, right? Um,
Mhm.
and so mostly this feels like a pretty open experiment. I'm really interested to see if other folks connect to it, right? And that's what I put it in there. Oracle maps can be made for, these maps of belonging can be made for the land you live with as well.
Mm.
Another way to understand the stories of the land you live with, as well as, and I've done this too, is with communities and having these community oracle maps to work with. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a nice
Yeah.
way of connecting and understanding a community as well.
Yeah.
Do it
That because
together.
communities have seasons of change too. And I think where, because I've been in many groups, some really functional, some very much not so, some that lasted for decades, some that fell apart. And one of the things I've learned through this is that we have to make space for a group's seasons to change, for there to
Mm.
be a cycle within groups, and to not try to, again, hold on to the seed ideas of what this group should be so tightly that nothing can happen. And so this is one of the ways that I think about things,
Hmm.
and I just mostly I'm just really excited to see, whenever I put out something I'm excited about, I'm like, oh, I wonder if other folks will be excited too. I was the kid who was like, hey, look at this. Look, isn't this cool? Let's talk about this. Which Power Ranger are you?
Yeah,
You
for sure.
know? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited about it. Yeah, and I think about one of my early herb teachers, Kay Avanti in Massachusetts. She would go, after she would meet with one of her clients, she would go into a meditation with a big piece of paper on the floor and markers and would just start like drawing and writing and letting what came to her come to her. And a lot of times that would be like kind of the basis for her protocols as she would suggest to the person,
Mm,
and she was kind of creating this map of belonging, or this map like of the person that
yeah.
she saw in front of her in a creative, artful, and meditative spiritual way, allowing spirit to move through her pen.
Yeah. And I should be clear, this idea is not mine. It is just it's a very old idea. We used to rely on dreams, right?
Right.
Not just a dream of one individual, but community dreams, and also
Totally.
active trance work within. We are
Mm.
built for going into trance states and meditative states. Our brains really like that, and we crave that. I think social media scrolling is shows that it's taken advantage of that part of our brain that likes to be in that trancey bit. And
Oh,
so, and trances and dreams and that's where some of our best stories have come from, right? And
yeah.
so it all kind of, this is just my idea of how I've understood this practice of pulling from our sleeping, dreaming body, our physical body, our emotional, mental body, the body of our experiences of, or the body of lineage that flows through us, and the body of land we live with, and the bodies of land we interact with, that this is just building upon this pretty incredible legacy that not only herbalists, but sort of people interested in helping their communities be well, right,
Yeah.
have participated in. And I'm always interested in the how do I um, continue to make tools that feel really accessible to folks,
Hmm.
um, to tell their own stories and to be able to hear the stories of others in a way that feels like a practice of connection, right?
Mm. Yes. Well, think you do it very well.
Thank
So,
you.
yes.
Again, phew.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Alexis, for
Yeah.
for sharing these stories with us and for sharing this beautiful book with us. And if folks want to learn more about you and your work and anything upcoming, where should they go?
Come to my website,
Very good.
wartsandcunning.com.
Wonderful. And do you have any classes or anything?
I offer online classes. You'll see there. It's a whole variety of things.
Great.
Yeah. I also have a vast archive of free stuff to read. So go and read. I had a student years ago describe my website and classes as the really a fun library feeling part of the internet, where like,
Yeah.
you're around a lot of other nice people, but it's pretty quiet and chill. Yeah. So come to the
Yes.
quiet part of the internet.
I love it. Yeah, I first heard about your work in many, like 10 years ago with the green bottle,
Yeah.
with the pay what you will model
Yeah.
that you
Sliding
created for
scale. Yeah.
us. So the sliding scale, thank you. So yeah, you have so many great resources that herbalists and community folks from all different walks of life really can benefit from. So thank you for putting all of your work out there for us, and wild blessings to you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Blessed be. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alexis. All right, bye.
Bye.